update on development in primary prevention of cardiovascular disease so far. We will not waste your time. Thank you very much. We are starting in time.
Slide changer मुझे दे दें. Presentation. Actually, in present situation, defending aspirin in primary prevention is very difficult to say anything about it. But let's discuss the existing evidence and whether they are really applicable to every patient in relation to primary prevention or not. So the key points I'm going to cover: should anyone need aspirin for prevention of CAD disease? And there's 3 points I'm going to cover in the presentation: rationale of using antiplatelets, assessment of cardiovascular and bleeding risk, looking at the present evidence, and who to receive aspirin in primary prevention. These are the 4 points we are going to cover. We all know that ischemic heart disease or any atherosclerotic heart disease has 2 phases: atherosclerotic and atherothrombotic phase. Initiation on progression of atherosclerotic plaque, and then it ruptures and give you the events. These are the 2 phases of disease already discussed. And this is the phase thrombotic, where you need antiplatelets to either prevent the event from happening, or second, to decrease the really severity of event if it's happened, if you are having antiplatelet on board with you. And these are the common manifestation of that thrombotic event on the background bed of atherosclerosis: stroke, TIA, MI, unstable angina, critical limb ischemia, whatsoever. And we all know that aspirin action there is no role in atherosclerosis. It's acting in atherothrombosis in terms of by inhibiting platelet. These are the very basics, so just I'm quickly going through it. So the question, prevention misconception: can we prevent IHD with aspirin? We can't, because IHD or any atherosclerotic disease may be present in a patient depending on the risk status of the patient. It's thrombotic event which unleash his status, that on one day just prior to rupturing of plaque he's primary prevention, and the second day he had that rupture of plaque, we consider it to be a secondary prevention. Now it means that he's having no atherosclerotic bed while he was day before that event, and he's having no atherosclerosis anywhere in the body, so he needs no antiplatelet on board to prevent him from that rupture plaque and its event, its consequence. So it's a very complex thing, and I'll go through the event evidences. In spite of all the evidences against aspirin in primary prevention, still even the conclusion says, yes, in some patients with very high risk you can use. So that's there, even the latest guideline, depending on the risk. And we'll cover that and see that situation, whether it really applies to our risk status of patient, where you just scoring someone to be diabetic, but no, you're not scoring his diabetes control, his hemoglobin A1C, his other status, his lifestyle, his obesity and everything. And the things you'll see in those 3 trials, ASPREE, ASCEND and ARRIVE, will show you the inclusion criteria. So, and that I'll leave it to the expert to decide who should be really needing aspirin in primary prevention in our setups. So, no, we can't prevent IHD, which is atherosclerosis, but we can reduce atherothrombotic events with aspirin. That's the rationale of using antiplatelets. And whenever we even prior to these evidences, this is the way of selecting whether your patient needs aspirin or not, is integrating benefits and harm. And even at present state, people still believe that aspirin is beneficial, but that's the harm. The balance is tilting towards no benefit in a way that it's causing in a low risk patients bleedings or other things. That's why it's not at the end beneficial to give aspirin in primary prevention. But when you integrate benefit and harms, benefits of aspirin are related to underlying risk of CVD events, and harms are independent of CV events. That these harms are equal in every kind of patients. Even you are expecting these harm in IHD patients as well, in which you are giving aspirin. But you are expecting benefit to be very much. That's why you are tolerating these harms even in atherosclerotic or anywhere else, and you're giving aspirin for that reasons. So, in high-risk CVD risk population, benefit exceeds harm. In low to medium CVD risk patient, harms exceeds benefits. It's that balance you are tilting, that if your patient has more risk, then ultimately at the end of the day he'll get benefit of aspirin. And if he is low risk, the harms are more as compared to the benefit. That's why you're not giving. Nobody is really denying the benefit of aspirin even in these low risk groups. It's all that balance of harm and benefits. So what constitutes low, medium and high risk according to the present evidences? You see, these are the few definitions we need to know. What are those? Risk factors for bleeding in your patient. What are those? History of previous GI bleed, age greater than 70, thrombocytopenia, coagulopathy, CKD, current use of other medication that increase bleeding risk. Low dose aspirin is, now remember this dose, 75 to 100. And you'll see what are the dosages used in those all ASPRE, ASCEND and ASPIRE trial. These were 100. Why not 75? Why 100? I don't know. So as compared to 75, you're using 100, you expect slightly more bleeding as compared to 75. It was already said that as low the dose, which is even equivalent in benefit in terms of maintenance dosages, but when you increase the dosages, you expect more harms. Pooled cohort equation, 10 years, atherosclerotic. These are the all things you're going to listen in subsequent discussion. That's why I'm highlighting these definitions, this ACVD risk calculation and all that. This is the ACVD risk calculator on the basis of which you are calculating risk. Now see what are the variables. Sex, age, rest, just total cholesterol, not the levels. HDL, systolic blood pressure, treated, diabetes, but diabetes, yes or no? Smoker. There is no, in terms of other things like your lifestyle, your all other things in this risk calculation. So even this risk is not very comprehensive risk assessment tool. It's just give you an idea about it. Low to moderate risk, that is less than 7.5%, moderate to high risk greater than 7.5 to 20%, very high risk greater than 20%. And still after all those evidences, aspirin is suggested to be used in very high risk. You can use. So there is a role. And whenever you have even intermediate risk, these are the variable things you have to look for further risk assessments after that ACC, atherosclerotic cardiovascular risk assessments. So even जब आप उसको 7.5 to 20% risk कह रहे हैं, you're further assessing these patients by these all things. Now calcium scoring. Now if your patient's calcium scoring is more than 100, even if it's primary prevention, you're using statin there, but you're not advocating aspirin to this patient with a background suspicion of a plaque of atherosclerosis there. So there are a lot of things which need to be further clarified according to our population, whether really is this evidence enough to say that no aspirin in primary prevention. How do we use these findings? Low risk, don't offer aspirin. Medium to high risk, preference to decide what to do. So even in these patients, you have to make a decision according to the risk and benefit of the patient and take on bleeding and no by diabetes. ASCEND, That covers the young age group, but with type 1 or type 2 diabetes, no other thing. So again, coming to that, after these all things, that considering these two phases of disease, atherosclerosis and atherothrombosis, if you have, and still, in spite of that, all things which are going against aspirin, every guideline is advocating aspirin to be there for very high risk patients in primary prevention. Now, it's all depend on judging bleeding and atherosclerotic risk. But I'm leaving the conclusion for the experts to have a conclusive comments for our setup, where our risk factors are not properly controlled. 2-3 risk factors doesn't mean just presence of risk factor. Along with it, a cluster of lifestyle things, diet, lack of physical activity. Are we able to say that no aspirin in primary prevention or not, considering these two things? So I'm just concluding, present evidence created controversy about use of aspirin in primary prevention. Should that evidence be applied to low and intermediate risk or every patient irrespective? Yes, let's agree that low and intermediate risk, yes, bleeding risk is more and atherosclerotic risk is not that high. But should that apply to every primary preventive patient irrespective of risk status or not? Thank you very much. I'm leaving this question for the experts to answer.